The Lancashire Hussars were originally formed in 1798 as independent troops, before becoming the Lancashire Yeomanry Cavalry in 1828 and then being disbanded in 1832. In 1848, the regiment was reformed as the Lancashire Hussars, becoming the Lancashire Hussars Imperial Yeomanry in 1901 for service in South Africa and the Lancashire Hussars Yeomanry in 1908. History. World War I. In accordance with the Territorial and Reserve Forces Act 1907, which brought the Territorial Force into being, the TF was intended to be a home defense force for service during wartime and members could not be compelled to serve outside the country. However, on the outbreak of war on 4 August 1914, many members volunteered for Imperial service. Therefore, TF units were split in August and September 1914 into first-line and second-line units. Later, a third line was formed to act as a reserve, providing trained replacements for the first and second-line regiments. 1/1 of a Stone Lancashire Hussars. The 1/1 of a Stone was formed in Liverpool in August 1914 and attached to the Welsh Border Mounted Brigade. In 1915, the regiment was split up, the regimental headquarters and B Squadron joining the 31st Division and, after moving to France, being briefly attached to the 2nd Indian Cavalry Division. The rest of the regiment was attached to 35th Division and 30th Division. The regiment was reformed in May 1916 to form the 8th Corps Cavalry Regiment. In July 1917, the regiment was dismantled and dispatched for training as infantry. This was completed in September 1917, when the men joined a battalion of the Kings, which was redesignated as the 18th Battalion. The King's Regiment, 2/1 of a Stone Lancashire Hussars. The second-line regiment was formed in September 1914. By July 1915, it was under the command of the 2/1 of a Stone Western Mounted Brigade and in March 1916 was at Cooper, Fife. On the 31st of March 1916, the remaining mounted brigades were numbered in a single sequence and the brigade became 21st Mounted Brigade, still at Cooper under Scottish command. In July 1916 there was a major reorganisation of second-line yeomanry units in the UK. All but 12 regiments were converted to cyclists and as a consequence the regiment was dismantled and the brigade converted to 14th Cyclist Brigade. Further reorganisation in October and November 1916 saw the brigade redesignated as 10th Cyclist Brigade in October 1916, still at Cooper. The regiment moved to St Andrews in July 1917. By January 1918, 10th Cyclist Brigade had moved to Lincolnshire with the regiment at Skegness. About May 1918 the brigade moved to Ireland and the regiment was stationed at Bandon and Budfont, County Cork. There were no further changes before the end of the war. 3/1 of a Stone Lancashire Hussars. The third-line regiment was formed in 1915 and in the summer it was affiliated to a reserve cavalry regiment at the Curragh. In the summer of 1916 it was affiliated to the 10th Reserve Cavalry Regiment, also at the Curragh. It was absorbed by the 2nd Reserve Cavalry Regiment, still at the Curragh, in early 1917. By 1918 it had left the 2nd Reserve Cavalry Regiment when the 1st Line Regiment was converted to infantry and joined 5th Battalion of the Kings at Oswestry. Interwar years in 1920, it converted to a Royal Artillery role and was redesignated as the 2nd Army Brigade (RFA). In 1921, it was redesignated as the 106th Brigade (RFA) and then, in 1924, as the 106th Field Brigade (RA). In 1938 it was retitled as the 106th Field Regiment R.A. Second World War 106th Regiment RA. At the start of the Second World War, the Hussars comprised 423rd and 424th Batteries based in Liverpool. By November 1939, it was part of the UK-based 1st Cavalry Division and was equipped with 4.5-inch howitzers and 18 PDR field guns. In January 1940, the regiment moved to Palestine. Later that year, it was renamed the 106th Regiment Royal Horse Artillery. It moved to North Africa in August 1940, after serving in Crete, by which time 424 BTY had become No. 1 and No. 2 batteries and 423 BTY had become No. 3 and No. 4 batteries, known as 1 106th BTY, 1 102nd BTY, etc. The former two were equipped with Bofors 37mm anti-tank guns on portées, and the latter two with captured Italian 20mm breeder Model 35A8 guns. Each new battery consisted of only two troops, A and B, C and D, E and F and G and H. It served with the 7th Armoured Division during many of the early battles in North Africa. At the end of February 1941, the regiment was advised that it was to become a light anti-aircraft regiment of just 3 batteries and was then later known as 106th Light Anti-Aircraft Regiment, RA. In March 1941, the regiment deployed to Greece via Operation Luster as part of W Force. Upon disembarking at Piraeus, the regiment deployed to Glyfada for 2 weeks training. Thereafter, the regiment was sent to defend the airstrip at Larissa. The German advance forced the British to retreat to the town of Nauplion, where the 106th were the only AA defense. After destroying the breeder guns, the regiment was evacuated to Crete on board HMS Calcutta. Most of the regiment ended the campaign in the defensive Suda Bay in the Battle of Crete, becoming prisoners of war in the process. It was placed in suspended animation in July the same year, with many of its men going to reinforce the 102nd Regiment RA, which were being strengthened and re-equipped after being evacuated from Greece and Crete. 149th Regiment RA post-war. After the war in 1947, it was renamed the 306th Heavy Anti-Aircraft Regiment RA, before being amalgamated with the 390th LAA Regiment RA in 1950. Later, in 1956, it became P Battery of 287th Medium Regiment RA, and by 1967, it was just A Troop P Battery, the West Lancashire Regiment RA. In 1969, the regiment reduced to a cadre and the yeomanry lineage discontinued. However, in April 1999, 106th Regiment Royal Artillery, based at Grove Park, London, re-adopted the yeomanry status of the old 106th Regiment RA. Bibliography: Arthur Douglas. Desert Watch, A Story of the Battle of Badr FOMM. Bedale, Blaisdon Publishing. ISBN 9781902838014. Arthur Douglas. 40 Men 8 Horses. Cambridge, Vanguard Press. ISBN 9781843860709. James Brigadier. British Regiments 1914–18. London, Samson Books Limited. ISBN 0-906304-032. Milam, Patrick. The Yeomanry Regiments, 200 Years of Tradition. Edinburgh, Canongate Academic. ISBN 1898410364. Rinaldi, Richard A. Order of Battle of the British Army 1914. Ravi Rikai, ISBN 9780977607280.